Welcome back to a new installment of Wheels of History. Before telling you about today's protagonist, we ask you, if you want more videos like these, to subscribe to the channel. It's a small gesture for us, but fundamental for the continuation of spreading the word about vehicles that have made history. Today we tell you the story of the Moto Morini Corsarino ZZ. In the 1960s, the world of sporty mopeds experienced a real explosion of creativity and innovation. During a time when motorcycles were starting to become popular among young people, these machines were not only a means of transport, but also symbols of freedom and adventurous spirit. Many people chose them for their practicality, while others saw them as a way to express their personality. Mopeds became the everyday transport for workers, employees and families, often chosen for their affordability and ease of use, without much concern for brand or trophies. However, some models managed to capture the imagination and win the hearts of enthusiasts. Among these, Moto Morini's Corsarino stands out as a true example of passion and design. It was the dream of an entire generation of young people, and nearly 50 years after its production, it continues to captivate collectors who would do anything to own each model and version. There are many reasons for this lasting appeal, all valid. Firstly, it is a truly small motorcycle that stands apart from the two-stroke conformity of other mopeds, both technically and conceptually. Then, there's the prestige of high-class mechanics, and finally, its beauty, because the Corsarino is genuinely beautiful, elegant and well-proportioned. And, let's say it softly, there's also its music, the sound of the exhaust, which closely resembles that of its bigger brothers, the Corsaro, especially in the Regolarita versions, which, when they sped at full throttle through the fields of the Valle Bergamasca, would definitely turn heads, not only of villagers and holidaymakers, but also of sheep and cows. The Corsarino, after all, was born in the wake of the success of various Corsaro models, the 125, 150 and 175cc lightweight bikes, which themselves were derived from the 1956 Barzino 98, and its debut was already a challenge. It was late 1963. The public would get their first look at it at the Milan Motorcycle Show in November, during a recession in the motorcycle market caused by the advent of utility cars, which had not only won over family men but also young people who now dreamed of a new, modified Cinquecento instead of the 175 single-shaft motorcycle. It was a time when many factories were forced to close and others struggled to survive by producing simpler, cheaper vehicles. Morini, however, introduced a moped that, while touted as utilitarian, it had an open single-tube frame, boasted a refined four-stroke engine, overhead valves, a three-speed gearbox, and Kickstarter ignition without pedals. Alongside this version, marked with the letter V, was the Z model, which, with minor modifications to the frame structure and bodywork, anatomical tank, long saddle, low handlebar, rear shocks with exposed springs, transformed into a feisty little motorcycle. Perhaps less comfortable, but more attractive than the V, which remained in the catalogue for a few years. More as a formality than anything else, with little sales success. In March 1965, the Corsarino Z became the ZZ, accentuating its sporty vocation even further, with the addition of a pedal-operated gearbox instead of the twist grip. Other modifications included changes to the fork, the tank, the saddle with a raised end, and the streamlined tailpiece. Later, in early 1966, came the four-speed gearbox, the most successful version of the Corsarino ZZ, which can be considered its full maturity, accompanied by the more comfortable ZT version with a high handlebar and shorter saddle. It would remain in the catalogue along with the Scrambler version, which we'll discuss on another occasion, for over 10 years, undergoing various aesthetic updates while staying fundamentally unchanged in essence. This version in particular is considered the best, and, rightly so, is among the most valued and appreciated by collectors today. Now let's take a closer look at the Corsarino, and specifically its small engine, a true mechanical gem. It certainly wasn't the first four-stroke 50cc to appear on the Italian and international market, even within our borders and post-1 to 2. It was preceded, for example, by the Seata Ducati Cucciolo the Motom, the virtually unknown Gaio, the Capriolo prototype soon transformed into a 75cc, the Pegaso, Somaschini and Dem. But it is undoubtedly one of the most successful, complete and reliable models of all time. The engine's architecture mirrors that of the previous four-stroke touring models from Morini, a two-part crankcase with a vertical split line and oil tank in the sump, head and cylinder tilted at 30 degrees, in light alloy with an iron cylinder liner. Its dimensions are compact, with bore and stroke measurements of 42 and 37 millimeters respectively. The crankshaft is made of 3 parts and is mounted on rolling bearings. The closed connecting rod originally had free roller bearings in the head. A flywheel magneto alternator is mounted on the left end of the crankshaft, while the primary transmission's helical gear and the camshaft drive gear, also helical, are on the right. The timing push rods are housed in a compartment cast into the cylinder, with the valves parallel and drawn back by coil springs. The combustion chamber is thus flat. Ignition logically uses a flywheel magneto with an external coil and fixed timing. The official carburetor for 3-speed models is the Dell'Auto SH14/12/2, which provides a legal power output of 1.64 horsepower at 4600 RPM, while the 4-speed ZZ features a Dell'Auto UA15BS. Even here, official performance is within legal limits, but it's no state secret now to reveal that the actual power, camouflaged by the term export, is considerably higher. The multi-plate clutch in an oil bath is also on the right, protected by a cover that encloses the transmission gears and has a cap for the lubricant. The gearbox is 3-speed for the V and Z, the first version of the ZZ, and 4-speed for the Scrambler and ZZ models from 1966 onward. The V model uses a twist grip, while the ZZ has a foot-operated gear lever mounted outside the crankcase, protected by a cover that also shields the magneto flywheel and the final drive sprocket. The gearbox uses a cascading system with gears always engaged and with pin-type shifting on the secondary. Specifically, in the 3-speed gearbox, gear locking is achieved with a butterfly-shaped cross, while the 4-speed uses a pin. The gearbox primary houses a cam operating the oil pump piston, sending pressurized lubricant to the crankshaft as is common. The top of the distribution system is lubricated by oil vapor. When the clutch is disengaged, however, the oil pump obviously stops, so it's best not to run the engine too long with the clutch engaged. The main structure of the frame is a top tube complemented in the Z and ZZ models by 2 front braces that form an open cradle. The rear swing arm is tubular, while the front and rear suspensions are telescopic. The wheels have steel rims which somewhat clash with the sporty look of the vehicle, which would have ideally featured light alloy rims. Central drum brakes, made of light alloy, have a diameter of 105 millimeters and are cable operated. As mentioned earlier, body components, tank toolbox fenders, were changed multiple times over the years, as were the color schemes. The early red and white versions were eventually replaced by a black frame with a red, blue or gold tank, among other colors. A real treat for enthusiasts, always on the lookout for lesser-known variants to complete an integral collection. The Corsarino remained on the market until mid-1977. The price, starting from the initial 102,000 lire for the V and 109,000 lira for the 3-speed twist grip Z, rose to 345,000 for the last 4-speed ZZ and 367,000 for the contemporary Super Scrambler. Later models. Above the 1969 4-speed Corsarino ZZ version with chrome fenders, tank saddle fork of a different design and new color scheme, the high handlebar was an option instead of the sport one. Below, the final 1976-77 version. The tank fork saddle headlight front fender and tool bag were changed. The frame was black, while the other parts varied in color. The brake plates were sandblasted rather than polished. Identifications. It's very easy to misidentify models because you shouldn't rely on the frame code. In fact, Morini, until frame marked Z13200, built various models from 1963 to 1967, including the Z, ZT, Scrambler, and the 3-speed ZZ from 1965 and the 4-speed ZZ from 1966. The first Z homologation was dated April 3rd, 1964, with number Z01630. The first ZT homologation was dated March 16th, 1967, with number ZT13201. With frames marked ZT, the ZT, ZZ, and Scrambler models were built. The first ZZ homologation was dated October 1st, 1970, with number ZZ35219. With frames marked ZZ, the ZZ models were built. The Scrambler also had specific homologations and differs from the standard ZZ. Parts by King of Piston. The Corsarino, for those who want only the best in parts, finds its perfect partner with King of Piston's unique replacements, crafted to preserve the spirit and quality of the original, ensuring this historical gem remains as legendary as ever.